Today I'm going to talk about the new 4-threat sniper joining Marvel Crisis Protocol with Silver Sable. My name is Nate, and welcome to the Gamers Guild. So, Atomic Mass games are still surprising me with new character designs, even though we are almost 200 characters deep into the game. And when I say this, I'm talking about characters who add new abilities and playstyles to the game. Looking at like Last Wave with the Spider Foes box and Web Warriors, there were a lot of really cool characters and fun characters, but really Sandman was the only one who really added new things to the game. Vulture was like an inverted Sam. Electro is a mobile damage dealer, which we've seen before. Gwenum and Scarlet Spider are both great, but they're just kind of like rearranged versions of other characters. Again, none of this is a bad thing, just pointing out how rare it is to always get something fresh and new on a character, especially when the majority of their kit feels new. And with that, let's talk about Sable. The only significant thing about her stat block is she just doesn't really want to take a punch. Her stamina does go up to 6 on her injured side, but 3s across the board and 5 stamina aren't going to encourage getting punched. Her tactical takedown attack has a nice and comfortable range of 5, which helps her from not getting punched. It is only a gainer, but has the chance at rooting the target, which is on the right target, a really big deal. As well, on a crit and wild, you get a push on the target regardless of size. Now, the push does have to be towards you. Thankfully, it's a maze, so you don't have to bring people into range of Sable. But the control option on any size is really nice for getting enemies off of objectives, even if you aren't hitting the trigger necessarily consistently. Sable's Spender is an interesting one, and one of those development spaces I'm a really big fan of personally. It has that comfortable range of 5 again, but is only 6 strength for 3 power. It has a critical stun trigger after the attack is resolved, which is great, but the really cool thing is that, first of all, if the target is not within range 3, they don't get cover. Cool, neat. But the much cooler thing is if this attack deals damage and the target is outside of range 3, you get to increase the amount of damage by 2, which means for your average Joe, this attack is going to hit for a minimum of 3 damage as long as your dice just don't flub out on you, which is unfortunately still a thing that can happen. That is only one of the things that she can spend her power on, though. Her only active ability is Shot Caller. It's like Field Leader, but better. You get to choose an allied character within range 4 and advance them short, and then also give them a power for the cost of 3 power on your end. And while it is limited to using this on each character once per turn, the ability itself is not once per turn. So while this isn't an ability that dips into new territory, it is still a really nice ability that will give your allies both some power and a reposition. Her next superpower is a reactive ability called Want My Help, Pay Up. This ability costs 0 to use, kind of. When an allied character within range 4 of Sable makes an attack during the pay cost step of the attack, Sable gets to use this power. The allied character pays/loses 2 power, and if it does, Sable gains 1 power and the allied character gets to add 1 dice to the attack roll. This can only be used once per turn. So some extra sniper cover fire is a really cool ability that the attacking character can both help fill Silver's power supply as well as help them hit a little bit harder. And a fun fact to boot is that she can pay for herself for help, since Silver Sable is indeed an allied character who is within range 4 of herself. We then have 2 innate powers, Wall Crawler and Sniper's Nest. Wall Crawler is that helpful movement ability that lets characters traverse terrain very easily, which is going to be very helpful for her next ability, Sniper's Nest. It says when this character is targeted by a physical or energy attack while she is overlapping, aka on top of, a size 3 terrain feature or larger, the attacking character is not on top of, Silver Sable gets to add 2 dice to her defense roll. I love this. It's thematic, it's good, and it doesn't even rely on you necessarily having to have cover. Like someone can be standing at the bottom of a building and throw a punch or take a swipe at her, and she still gets the bonus. Granted, it is even better when she's getting cover, but all in all, it's a really cool and new ability that doesn't cost her any power herself. The last thing to mention before we talk about big picture here is there is a significant change on her injured side, in addition to our stamina going up to 6. We lose the pay up power and exchange it for protect the asset. It is also reactive and costs 2 power. Basically, when an enemy character within range 4 of Silver Sable makes an attack targeting an allied character holding an extract objective, Silver Sable will get to make her gainer attack against the attacking character. This attack is after the initial attack is all resolved, and the ability can only be used once per turn. And like pay up, this works even if the enemy is attacking her, since the ability doesn't specify another allied character. So we have a lot of cool new tech coming with this character, and thankfully, pretty much all of it lends itself to a playstyle that has a similar game plan. Silver will just want to set herself up on a Daily Bugle or Daily Bugle-esque building and be popping off shots and making some calls to help power up and position allies. Headshot is an attack that I'm extremely excited to just see how impactful that extra damage ends up being. uh, so pros and cons stuff wise, the pros is she is a long range attack support piece that puts all of her eggs into that one basket, and so she does that job really well. She has a little bit of control, even if it is far from guaranteed, but offers a lot of different support options. So what about the downsides? One, this girl will probably end up being pretty power hungry. Only having a gainer is going to be rough. It's going to be helped a little bit by other people paying her power to get the extra dice on her front side. And by the time she's on her injured side, you probably have accumulated a little bit of power from the damage she's taken. Uh, Her other big weakness that seems pretty evident is characters that can yank her terrain out from under her, removing her from her nest and cover. So finding a sniper's nest that is out of the way enough for enemies to have to really waste some economy to get to her, while also not being too far out of the way so that she can still be impactful in the game, is going to be an interesting situation for players to figure out. All in all, I'm really excited to see how she fares on the table. As far as affiliations go, it seems like she will likely be a defender, but she doesn't really like Daredevil's leadership, and Strange's leadership is fine, but it's still pretty restricted for what she's wanting to do. She could also be a web warrior or even criminal syndicate player. There's really just not too much to be hinted at in her panel to play as far as that stuff goes. In general, though, I feel like she could be great with Charles's X-Men and the power game that they play, or really anywhere that is going to help her get more power so that she can get off more headshots herself. Magneto, in particular, will enjoy her as she will be able to help with his mobility and she will get power out of the leadership. So, not a bad deal for them all in all. But that's all I have about the Silver Sable. From the comments last week, it seems that this kind of character breakdown is more enjoyable to listen to, and it feels a lot less robotic for me, which is all in all great, so I'm going to continue with that style. As we enter the new month, it is time for a drawing giveaway sponsored by Tritex Games. May's winner is the teacher, who seems to really enjoy Sandman's sculpt. So I'll be in contact with you shortly and get you hooked up with a standard MCP expansion box. And if you, listening, watching, etc., want to participate in June's giveaway, all you need to do is leave a comment on a video the same month that video was released. And speaking of Tritex, I want to take a moment to shout out the guild sponsors who make this content possible. If you are in the UK, you can shop at Tritex Games using code TritexGGCP5 at checkout for an extra 5% off of your MCP order. And if you're doing a pre-order on things like all these new Defenders coming out later this month, it will net you a grand total of 25% off. If you are in the US, you can shop at gamechefs.org and use the codes Gamers Guild for 15% off of your order. As always, if you have an LGS you are playing at, we encourage you to support where you play. I do also want to take one last moment and say if you are enjoying the content here on YouTube or one of the different podcasts and want to support our efforts directly, you can support us on Patreon. As well, if you want to join us just in some silly discussions or ask questions to be answered from rules or general advice, you can join the Guildhall Discord page that has a link down in the description as well. Thank you all for watching, and until next time, keep on gaming.